Hello folks, and welcome to another video on the channel. This one is all about the Varjo Aero and how to best set it up correctly, or at least the way I do things. And it's mainly for Microsoft Flight Simulator, but if there's enough interest, I will look at other sims as well, like DCS for instance. Now also, just to quickly say, it's been absolutely wonderful as I've received so many emails, private messages of thanks, and just the emotional response that people are having with their aeros is exactly why I love this headset so much. So if you're out there, I haven't been able to respond to everybody, but thank you so much, and please keep sending those first impressions. Anyway, let's get straight into the settings now because I don't want to be too long. Let's start with the Varjo based software with the headset tab. I have my IPD automatic option disabled, and mine is there 64. That's up to you if you want it auto or not, but for me, I just find that I'm the only person who uses the headset most of the time, so I keep that disabled. Now here's the important one: image quality. I would highly recommend, folks, that you set it to high, which is the default 35 pixels per degree. It actually says it on the latest Varjo based software, which is good to see. Thank you, Varjo, for that, because we definitely needed that, at least a confirmation of the native resolution. Keep that at high. I mean, you know, feel free to try it a bit higher, which is super sample, but I really wouldn't recommend that. Keep it at 35 pixels per degree. Vertical synchronization, keep that disabled, because at the moment it's not really doing what it's supposed to in terms of smoothing the frame rate when it's lower. I find actually it creates some more juddering when you're sort of banking the aircraft, because we don't have motion prediction, which also, by the way, keep that disabled, because right now the Varjo Aero does not support motion reprojection. That is a sticky one, and I really hope soon, please Varjo, if you're listening to this, that we get that at least in the OpenXR runtime so that we can use it for this sim. So important. But anyway, these settings should hopefully help you get very smooth performance. So even without motion reprojection, which most of you don't really like anyway, it is absolutely a very smooth experience unless you are really close to the ground and looking straight down at sort of a 90-degree angle. Anyway, let's now go to the next tab, which is presentation. I leave that pretty much as it is now, apart from the bottom, which is optimized performance. Now if you click optimized performance, bear in mind you probably won't be able to switch to your virtual desktop. That feature will be disabled. So often when I'm streaming, I did a stream the other day with the Varjo Aero, I'll be switching backwards and forwards to my desktop, but generally speaking I'd recommend having that enabled. Okay, workspace, again, enable virtual desktop. If you don't need it, just get rid of it, guys, because it's just going to cost you a bit more performance. Personally for me, I do like that virtual desktop option, so I have that enabled, and there are all my settings there, pretty simple. And for system, I recommend for Microsoft Flight Simulator to disable OpenVR and enable OpenXR. The OpenXR runtime really rocks for this sim. It's very, very nicely optimized, and it's only going to get better over time. The rest of it, don't worry about that. And of course, support tab, I have automatic check for updates because the Varjo based software is being updated all the time. And it's also worth knowing, by the way, that the Varjo based software runs very much on your GPU, unlike other softwares, say from the Windows Mixed Reality based software and even Oculus. That's why it absolutely performs even better than the Reverb G2, with about 2 or 3 times better clarity, particularly over the whole image, as you know. Right, that is literally it for the Varjo based software. I'm going to show you my Nvidia settings. At the moment I'm using the 511.23 driver. I really like that driver actually. It's my new favourite driver, absolutely. These are my settings. I won't go through every one in particular, but you can see them there. I actually did a Nvidia driver video not so long ago, and they are the same settings. I use a max frame rate at 31. I've even tried up to 35, which is fine, because the Varjo Aero can reach up to about 35-40 frames per second, but it's good to cap it a little bit so that the frame timing is a bit smoother and there's just a bit more headroom. Again, power management to normal, texture quality to high performance, pre-rendered frames to 2. The usual stuff. Hope that's helpful. Pause the video if you need to copy those settings. Now, in this sim, this is pretty amazing, right? Are you ready for this? I have got higher settings with the Varjo Aero than I do with the Reverb G2. slightly higher settings, and these are what I'm using at the moment. Pretty impressive. I recommend render scaling. If you've got a 3080, perhaps knock it down a bit to 90, but really actually you'll probably be able to get away with 100%, but if you really want that extra smoothness, even 95% on the render scale will make a difference, weirdly. You know, those little 5% increases, which I do like Asobo have given us that option now, are pretty decent. And bear in mind that I'm sure many of you do know that I use 70% in OpenXR for the Reverb G2 and 100% in the sim. If you do the same thing and have your Varjo Aero, let's say at a resolution of 33 pixels per degree, so that's medium, with your render scale at 100 in the sim, you're going to get a big performance benefit. Of course, the clarity is going to drop off a little bit, but say if you've got a 3060 or a 3070, you'll still enjoy a much clearer image than the Reverb G2, particularly within the sweet spot, which is absolutely huge, as you all know. Right, as you can see there are my other settings for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think one of the things I want to mention is volumetric clouds. Even with a 3090, I don't really have that set to ultra. Sometimes I like to set it to ultra just for the eye candy, but I do feel they're not very well optimized at ultra, and I recommend leaving them high because you do get judders on the ground, and particularly for motion reprojection for the Reverb G2 as well. Definitely set that to high, no more than that. Other things that affect perhaps your GPU are texture super sampling and texture resolution and ambient occlusion and ray march reflections. I have them pretty high, being a 3090. I think 3080 you'll be fine as well. Anything lower than that, I recommend taking ambient occlusion completely down, as well as shadows and perhaps texture resolution, dropping that off a little bit as well. Okay, what else? Now, if you are running the NIS scaler, which is something that Reverb G2 owners are absolutely loving right now, and I understand why, make sure that is disabled for the Varjo Aero. Many of my subscribers have had an issue with grey, just basically a grey image over the Varjo, and you can't even see anything. That's because it's the NIS scaler is producing an overlay which needs to be disabled. I think also it's important to note the fitment. Make sure that you fit your Aero correctly using the adjuster at the side to mitigate any possible distortion issues, because that could be a thing that you're experiencing because the headset is not correctly fitted. I can do a separate video on that if you wish in the future. So really folks, that's about it, believe it or not. One thing I want to mention as well is actually when you start the Varjo Aero for the first time, make sure it's all switched on and the Varjo base is running first before loading up the sim. Otherwise the sim may freeze for up to about 1 or 2 minutes, which is pretty crazy. In fact, it could even crash. Also, I would recommend that you try experimenting with HAGs. That is a GPU scheduling feature. If you click your start menu and just type in GPU, you'll see graphic settings, and then there you'll see hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. Try it on or off. You know, some people have varying results. I prefer it on, but perhaps if you've got a 20 series card or a lower 30 series card, then maybe try disabling it as well. I can't really say one or the other, guys, because I get so many comments on either side of the fence. I think also Nvidia Shadow Play and Nvidia Broadcast, make sure all of that is just disabled, gone out of your taskbar. Only really have, say, your virus program running and Varjo base at the very, very maximum. Nothing else needs to be running there. And to be honest, I'm trying to think, folks, if I've forgotten anything, which I'm probably no doubt have, just let me know in the comments, and I can do an updated settings video at some point. But you can see from this video, it's actually a lot easier to set up the Varjo Aero than it is most other VR headsets. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I'll see you again very soon.